Good morning. I'm Deb. I'm a drug addict, alcoholic. I've done this work with sponsors. I always feel like I want to move back from that microphone. I've done this work with sponsors who took me through all 12 steps, and going through the 12 steps, I discovered God, the God that I call my higher power today. I've completed all my amends, and I practice the latter steps with all my heart. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself, but I'm not going to go into a big deal because I don't know, for some reason it just doesn't, I don't feel like I'm that person anymore. It's something that I understand, and I know where I come from, and I reflect on it, but it's just a little different. Same thing with this step, the third step. It's different every time we go through it. I learn different things. Anyway, I had to say the fear prayer on the way in and coming here because, this whole chapter, step 3 is about self, wah. And I worked last night, so I'm like, I'm tired. So, and my head goes, I'm gonna suck. So I said, in my car, I'm like, come on, this is not about me. This is about recovery. It's about God, and I am what's called in a fellowship. So we're fellows. We hang out together. So I'm safe here. So with that, and the first person I see when I get out of my car is one of my dear friends in this program. I'm like, see, God's got my back no matter what. But anyway, so my background is that I come from a place, I'm half Japanese, so I come from a place where my dad was military, big drinker, very violent house. Mother was Japanese, couldn't speak English very well, and my house was about, it was unpredictable and chaotic, as far as I can remember. And it was a very violent house, physically, verbally, whatever. I'm not talking about this because, so we can discuss my parents. I'm talking about it because it's information. It's just information so that I have learned through doing this work that I don't have to stay there with them and bring them everywhere I go. Because I used to, before I did this work, they'd always be right here. So if you said something to me, you were them. So with this work, I'm just recognizing where I come from. So I came from this background. I had a lot of anxiety because I was always ready to defend myself. And I didn't know that in the real world, we don't have to walk around and defend ourselves because everyone's not out to punch you or do something to you. But in my head, they were. So I took the coping skills I learned at home and I went out to the world, and that's how I dealt with people. I read your mind. If you looked at me a certain way, I anticipated that you were going to say something, do something to me, so I was ready for you. So I was going to talk about you before you talked about me, or I was going to do it to you before you did it to me. And then, of course, I discovered substance, and I liked it a lot because I had this sort of hum, under my skin all the time, like I was always ready for the shoe to drop. But I didn't know this stuff until I did this work. I just thought that I was tough. And I know, we laugh about this only because we know what it really is. It was fear. It was fear. So I picked up substance at a very young age, and I just, I was like, I just knocked the top off the bottle. Boom. And I just blew up because now I was invincible. Nothing could touch me because I felt like I had a shield. And I went and used for a long time, and I created a lot of damage with everyone I came in touch with because I was either sick from or had money that I owed to or calling in sick to or lying to. So I was walking around always managing every single person I had contact with because I didn't know what I told you and what I didn't tell you and whether I called in sick and whether I committed to something. So it was so awful to be in my skin because I wasn't even in my skin. I was miserable. So long story short, like I told you, I was half Japanese, and so my face gets red when I drink. And you probably have heard me say this before, but it's really what goes on. We can't make this stuff up. So I thought it was a good idea that if my life's falling apart, I'll just get married. And so then, I know this sounds crazy, but it's the truth. And so if my life's falling apart, I think I'll have some kids too. So, not that I'm going to do any damage to them, right, with my lifestyle. So I told you I'm half Japanese. My face gets red when I drink. So as I take my kids to school, I don't want to go to school with a red face because everyone will know I'm slammed. So I decided I'd get into drugs. So see that now this is what the book talks about with insanity. This is what insanity is. I make decisions that are ridiculous. To a normal person that isn't in this program, maybe they would say, that's insane. But to an alcoholic, it's like, that's a good idea. Right? Because now no one can see my face. They don't know that I have a buzz on, and now nobody knows, right? Anyway, so the long and short of it is we're getting to the end and where I explode, and this was, it's very sad, but now it's funny when we think about it, but it's very sad. I started to just overdo it with everything. I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating, so my hair started to fall out. My skin started turning green. I was having like organ failure, and I thought it looked great. You know, it was just the lies we tell ourselves. So little things like wearing long sleeve shirts in the middle of summer. Anybody who does any substance, and this is Alcoholics Anonymous, I understand that, but this is just the story. I would wear long sleeve shirts in the summer, and my hair would be falling out. My face is green, and I look awful. And I had people in my family calling 911, trying to get me out of my own house. And what brought me into the program was that it wasn't because everything was falling apart, I was getting sick, and my body was falling apart. It was that I started to look like it. And this is the beauty of this program, because this whole chapter is about self-will, the actor. I was more concerned that you were going to notice that I was losing my mind, because I was losing everything, and you can see it now, than I was about dying. That's the ridiculousness of this disease. That's called insanity. So that's what brought me in here. It wasn't because of the accumulation of debt, almost losing my job, my kids, you know, the whole thing, my marriage. It was that I was starting to look like a crazy lady. So I come into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I go to different meetings, and I do what I usually did before. I don't do this anymore, thank you God, because of this work. Complain. So I go to different meetings, and I'm like, this person's stupid, this meeting sucks, you know, I'm not one of you guys, everybody's dirty. And it's not true. None of these things are true. It's just that I see everyone, I want to separate you from me. So, because I don't want to reflect on myself. After you've done this work, and I'm so grateful to have done it, I recognize that again as fear. I try to identify and judge. And if I judge you, then I don't have to look at myself. So if I spend a lot of time running my mouth off and pointing at you, then I don't have to look at me. So I did that. And so I was going to different meetings, and I was just obnoxious. And someone at the meeting, someone who I love very much, who is still my friend today, said, you need to go to this other meeting. And I said, all right, whatever. And I had continued to relapse over and over and over again. And I'd get a little bit of time, and I'd just relapse. And I was like really sick of myself. I had gone to a place where the self-loathing was so intense that I was like, I'm going to just I don't even know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to explode because I just hate myself so much. I didn't realize that I'd get to a point that I would do so many things that I never thought I would do. I just stooped to the lowest of low in my own evaluation of myself. So I go to a Big Book Step Study meeting, and my friend, it's funny because I don't even think he realized this, but I go to this meeting, this Big Book Step Study, and I can't talk, right? The person who's always complaining. Right, see, God loves me and this person loves me. So I go to this meeting, and it's so funny because I had to sit there and listen. And so when I am so involved in self and so filled with self-loathing and have so many, what we learn later on in the other steps, resentments, I'm so detached from God because there's no way God can come in because I'm never present. I'm always, what am I going to do after the meeting? What did I do before I got here? Where am I going later? What are you doing? And it's never, I'm going to be right here in this moment. So I got to this meeting, and not this particular meeting, but one in Leominster, and I listened for a short period of time, and I said, wow, I was absolutely blown away. really, with the level of honesty and the sincerity and the pain, but more importantly, the hope. People had hope, you know. I wasn't tangible. I couldn't tell you what that word was, but I could feel it. I knew people were getting better. I asked a woman, one of the first women there, I asked her to be my sponsor, and she said to me at the end of the meeting, you know, when they raised their hand, can anybody sponsor it? And I went up to her and I said, will you sponsor me? You know, filled with desperation and self-will, like, oh, fix me, make me better, give me the red pill or the blue pill, but something, give me something. And she asked me, are you using? And I said, I'm not. I am not using right now. I said, but I don't know how I phrased it, but I said something like, but my family doesn't know I'm using, that I have been, you know, an alcoholic and I'm a drug addict. And this woman said, I won't sponsor you because you're dishonest. So she went on my resentment list. And I was crushed, But see, again, this is the God thing. This is the process. And I love this process so much because God didn't want me to work with her. For whatever reason, he shifted me to someone else. So I asked another person to work with me, and she did not ask me any of those questions, and we started off. It was raining the day that after I got done reading the first 63 and a half pages. I was instructed to read the first 63 and a half pages, underline, look up words, identify things that stuck out to me. And we went to take the third step prayer, because that's the step we're on tonight. We're on the third step. We had to go sit in her car, and I was still in self. I wanted to get better, but I didn't really want to hear what she had to say. Isn't that, how do you like that, huh? That's good. Isn't that good? My self-will worked so far, didn't it? But still, at this point, I want to tell her to hurry up, speed it up. I got places to go. And so she's holding my hand. We can't kneel because it's raining, and I'm just sitting there going, okay, this is weird, but I'll do it. I'll do whatever you tell me to do because I want to get better. But my focus was, I want to get better. I want to get better on my own terms. I still hadn't learned what self-will was about. I just knew that I was desperate. So we did the third step prayer, and she instructed me to start the writing, which I won't go into because we're not on that step. But I love this chapter, how it works. When I initially went through this process of going to the meetings, listening to the step, how it works, I thought the answer was going to be in here, and I'd find the instructions on how to get better. And they are in here, but not for a person who's still in self-will. I had to understand that I had to listen to this process, work with someone who's done it, which is a sponsor, come to these meetings, be quiet, listen, get a connection with some kind of higher power. It begins here, you know, and recognize that this is the tip of the iceberg for me. I don't know for you guys. This step means a lot more to me today than it did when I first went through it. The first page talks about being honest. You know, I'm like, yeah? No, that's huge. Honesty is something that I still struggle with. And it's not because I am purposely trying to be dishonest, but I've spent, like I told you, an entire lifetime of managing my life with self-will. It was hard to flip the switch and go to God's will. It was just difficult. You know, I didn't know what honesty was. I just knew what survival was. It tells us to be fearless and thorough. Aside from doing this work, this was the first time in my entire life I'd ever been honest with another human being completely. When I finished this work, I finished the fourth step, I had never, ever been that honest with anyone. The third step to me, I made a decision to turn my will over. And I'm going to say it, when I did it initially, I didn't make that decision to turn my will over. I just did what I did to get better. So I don't want to be dishonest about that. Today, when I talk about the third step, I mean what I say. That I am turning my will over. I'm making a decision, a conscious decision, daily, hourly, sometimes minutes, because my life is what it is, that I want to turn my will over to the care of God, to the God that I understand, to the one that I'm connected with. I think we all have our own connection. I call my higher power God. Because I want to be relieved of the bondage of myself. I mean, that's why I came in here. I want to be all done with the twisted thinking that I'm right, that I can judge you, that I'm entitled to talk about you. The thoughts that keep playing over and over and over in my head, which I've learned is a resentment. I want to be done with that. And this is the beginning of that, because I've made a decision to do this. The 3 pertinent ideals, the ideas. Am I alcoholic? Yes. Yes, I am. So what does that mean? I can't manage my own life. I'm connected to substance. I put anything in my body, even if it's food, even if it's buying things. I've learned that it's like they say at the end, alcohol, liquor is but a symptom. For me, it really is a symptom. Gossiping, exercising. I'm one of those people that just, I really need to stay connected to God, to pray every day, hit my knees as soon as I get up, pray, meditate, do an inventory, do a 10-step, work on myself, work with a sponsor, work with sponsees, and really do this work, because I quickly go back to self-will, where I find myself having discussions with somebody who is not even in the room. There you go, self-will, here it is. And so you guys all laugh because you do it. All right, so that's why we say this is a fellowship. I'm not alone, right? That no human power could do this, because I tried everything before I got in here. I don't know if you guys did, but I tried meditation and yogas and ultra exercising and Ironman 70s, where I'd ride my bike for 75 miles, and that would surely get rid of the self-will. Yeah, crazy. That God would and could, if he were sought. So that means for me that I need to go after him. I know God loves me, and I know God is deep down inside of me, but I have to be open to that. And the only way for me to be open to that is to be present. That means in this moment, not what I'm going to do when I leave and where I just came from. For me, I have to practice presence right here, right now. That, God wants me here to say this message, because maybe one person's going to hear this and say, I want this too. I want to be relieved of that crazy thinking in my head. So for once, I won't think of myself as a piece of shit, which I don't think of myself at all anymore. I think of myself as, I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing the best I can. And it's just such a joy to live that way today, as opposed to, I don't know if you guys have any kind of background like this, just taking the bat, just beating yourself with it. Now it's in the closet. Take it out once in a while, but just put it back in the closet. The chapter talks about being kind and considerate, patient and generous, and I put next to it, at work. The actor. And then at home, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. Now, of course, I'm not 100% either way, but I've learned when I'm places and I'm all of a sudden Miss Smiley, Charmy Pants, I'm like, what do I want here? What's my motive? What am I afraid of? That's still self-will. I'm working it. So I've learned through this work to go, what are you doing, Deb? What are you greasing the wheels for here? And then I go to God, I say, take away my fear. Like when I walk into work, I work in an environment that's just, and I work in a hospital, and I walk in, I ask God to guide my hands, guide my will, watch what I'm doing, come with me through everything I do so I don't hurt anybody. And I do that with everywhere I go now. So I'm not trying to relieve God's will, my will, and do God's will. This chapter's got so much stuff in it, and I want to hear you guys. But on the page of 62, it has the word self written so many times. And I think it's trying to drive a point home, don't you think? Right. And so when I first got in here and heard us run through this chapter, I just heard the words going through my head, and now I don't hear just the words. There's a meaning. It's trying to tell us in so many different ways, trying to talk to me in so many different ways that this process of Big Book Step Study, being connected with God, having recovery from your disease of alcoholism, is not going to work. It's not going to work if I don't put God first. God first, me second. So if I continue to put me first, meaning I don't get on my knees, I don't pray. I pray maybe every other day. I don't follow up with the other steps. I don't contact. I isolate. Those are self. When I do the opposite of that, I do everything I'm supposed to do that's directed in here in the book and by your sponsor, I come out of self-will and I stay in God's will. And I can tell you exactly how it feels. If you're in self-will, at least for me anyway, I'm agitated. I want to finish your sentence. Come on, hurry up, let's go, move. I'm tailgating. I'm speeding. I'm eating really fast, and I think to myself, what does that taste like? That's all self-will for me. And then if I work out, and at the end of the workout, it could be like 2 hours long, I'd be like, see, and so then I think to myself, what am I doing? You know, where is the God in this thing I just did? I'm not even in the moment. I am in where I got to be next. So some people call the third step reporting for duty step. This is the beginning. You know, starting the work, and this is part of my connection every single day to say this prayer in every moment that I keep myself, jump back into it. This is only a beginning. I like how the book tells us that. It reminds us this is a beginning. And we have a lot more work to do. Vigorous action. And then it says here, which I love, it also has the third step promises. I want those. Don't you want those? I mean, we didn't come in here so we can get miserable, right? Oh yeah, I'm going to go to a meeting so I can be even worse. So we came here so we could contribute to life. Look at that. I love it. We begin to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, and the hereafter. I love the way it says we are reborn. Flip the switch. We were one thing before we came here. We're so lucky because you have two lives. One life is the one, you know, it's just for me anyway, the one that I blew up, and then the one I have now. You know, aren't we lucky? We could be dead, and we're not. We're here. It's just wonderful. So I'm going to end with this so I can hear everybody else speak. I circled the last paragraph on 64, principles to follow. Basically, the whole paragraph for me is not writing is not living in the solution. So when it talks about vigorous action after this step, it means to do the writing. So this isn't a lecture about whether you write or whether you don't write. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I don't care. If you don't do it, that's on you, because that's your thing. I want you to have what I have, which is a solution. But not writing and just doing what I did, remember I described myself? When I just come to meetings and just complain and blah, 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 that's still self-will. So I'm very, very, look at you smiling because you know me. I'm very, very grateful to be part of this process. It's the most amazing thing I've ever done, and it's not canned. I'm not just saying that. I really mean that. There is a solution here, but it requires work, commitment, dig in, do it, and work with somebody who's a sponsor who you can connect with. And I think that you're going to end up with a life that you've never expected. So that's it. Thanks. Thank you.